As we turn onto Keeping Road, the unsettling feeling sets in of the anticipation of investigating. There's a long list of crimes that have been committed on the road. There's been murders, there's been bodies dumped, there's been fires.
What's more of a haunted highway than Highway 666, the Devil's Highway? Highway 666, the 6th branch of the famous Route 66. It really doesn't get more never drive at 3 a.m. than this. Today, the highway is known as Highway 191. The name was changed due to the belief that the many accidents, apparitions, and creepy mishaps were caused by the highway having adorned the devil's number for so long. Unfortunately, however, changing the name has not changed the nature of the road, which remains haunted, dangerous, and incredibly creepy to this day. Phantom trucks, ghostly passengers appearing in back seats, see-through hitchhikers in torn white gowns, and hellhounds ready to rip the rubber directly off of your tires are a common sight for those driving along the roadway at night. One woman recounted a drive she had taken along the highway with her husband, saying, "At first everything seemed normal. Her and her husband were the only ones on the road when all of a sudden a massive truck appeared out of nowhere that seemed as though it was headed straight for the pair, charging so fast towards them that sparks were flying from the wheels and flames were coming out of the smokestack. The pair pulled off the road and waited for the truck to pass, and when it did, it disappeared into the night." I'm gonna go ahead and say avoid this roadway at night if you and your tires, which like I said are subject to be ripped apart by literal hellhounds, want to make it to your destination in one piece.
Now, there are plenty of haunted hotspots along Route 66, but one of the most famous is an abandoned truck stop in Villa Ridge, the Tri-County Truck Stop, which opened in 1971 and closed in 2006. Ever since its closing though, people have reported strange stuff going on at the site, and there have been plenty of paranormal investigations in the abandoned building. A team of paranormal investigators called the Paranormal Task Force investigated the site in 2006, and the guy leading the investigation, Greg Myers, said they experienced some pretty weird stuff. Almost as soon as they arrived, a coffee pot came flying off a shelf. It's a nice welcome. He also added, quote, "On the first night we were setting up a camera on the second floor. I was holding a door shut and something was trying to open it from the other side. We were actually fighting back and forth." Other investigators have spotted a man in red flannel in the bathroom vanishing as soon as he's spotted, and other objects like light bulbs being hurled. And people have also apparently seen orbs and spectral shapes floating through the building, some which have been caught on camera.
Dead Man's Curve, located in Claremont County in Ohio. The curve is a turning intersection, a dangerous one where Route 222 meets State Route 125, and it's also said to be the most haunted place in all of Ohio. Although there have been many deaths at the intersection, the majority of hauntings are attributed to 5 young men who were killed there on October 19th of 1969 after their 1968 Impala was hit head-on by a 1969 Roadrunner going more than 100 miles an hour. Since then, the curve has been haunted by the deceased young men who appear as faceless hitchhikers hoping to catch a ride from someone who can take them away from the place where they met their grisly end.
Next, we head to Rachel, Nevada with Route 375. This is a pretty notorious stretch of road, known for its supposed extraterrestrial activity. So much so that it's been nicknamed the Extraterrestrial Highway. UFO fanatics from all of the world flock here year after year, hoping to catch an unidentified object in the sky or hopefully find some clue as to what's really going on in Area 51. Driving along this road, you'll get closer to the place than you'd probably ever hope. Now, aside from Area 51 though, there are other interesting spots along the route. There are old atomic bomb sites, lots of other military facilities, and on top of all the alien stuff, there's said to be plenty of paranormal weirdness, vanishing apparitions along the road, phantom headlights, and for everyone with a clown phobia, you may want to make sure you plan your route so that you don't end up having to spend a night at the Clown Motel, which is exactly what it sounds like. A clown-themed motel filled with ceramic clown dolls, puppets, life-size statues, you name it. Definitely where I'd be wanting to spend the night, but maybe not for everybody.
Highway 5, located in Lynn, Alabama. It was what was once a normal highway became a hotbed hotbed for paranormal activity after a young woman was killed one night in the late 20th century. A young woman and her boyfriend had been making their way home from prom when the pair got into a vicious fight. Not being able to bear another moment spent arguing with her partner, the woman decided to exit the vehicle, and in a fit of anger, her boyfriend drove off, leaving her all alone in the middle of the night on an empty highway with no shelter, sidewalks, or anyone to help for miles around. She was determined though, and so she began walking along the highway in hopes of making it home by sunrise. Unfortunately, however, she was struck by a truck in a hit and run and left to spend the rest of the night dying a slow, painful death in a ditch next to the road. Her body was discovered the next morning, and her spirit has been there ever since. She's been seen walking along the highway aimlessly in the hopes of one day being able to finally make it back home to her family. Those who see her on the road and stop for help are greeted with a pretty creepy sight of a woman mangled and distressed who disappears when they finally get close enough to speak to her.
Route 2A in Maine is said to be one of the most haunted stretches of road in all of the US. Not only do you have loads of ghost stories, but it really is a pretty dangerous road. Lots of deadly accidents have happened here, especially in the winter, where the conditions are said to be absolutely brutal. Tons of sharp turns and blind corners, so it's a pretty notorious road as is. One of the most famous ghost stories is the Screaming Woman. A number of travelers driving along the road at night will report spotting a woman screaming by the side of the road, desperate for help, saying that her husband is trapped in a car wreck, so she asks to be driven further up the road where the accident is, but somewhere along the journey, the woman disappears. The story goes that one winter night, a newly married couple was driving along the road when they swerved and hit a utility pole. The husband was killed instantly, but the woman was thrown from the vehicle. She limped along the road for a while in search of help, but there were no other vehicles. Eventually, she collapsed and died from the cold.
Zombie Road, the most haunted road in Missouri, located in Willwood, Missouri, just west of St. Louis, if you know it. Today, Zombie Road is not so much a road as it is a series of trails, but at one point it was a road, and that is why it is on this list today. Zombie Road was originally constructed in the 19th century, but it was shut down in 2010 to be repurposed as a bike path. Big mistake. Prior to the road being converted into a trail, Zombie Road is rumored to have been home to a crazed killer who escaped from a nearby asylum during the 1950s. He lived out the rest of his days hiding in shacks around the road and preying on young men and women who were unfortunate enough to have been walking around the area. Eventually he died, but unfortunately, according to legend, that didn't stop his reign of terror, because it is believed that the crazed man went on to continue his killing spree in the afterlife, which is how the road came to be known as Zombie Road. When the road was converted to trails, it seems as though the spirit of the man, along with the spirits of his victims, became quite pissed off, because instances of paranormal activity in the area became so bad that city officials were forced to create strict hours of operation for the trail that forbid entry after dark. If you've been, let me know.
A name like Shades of Death Road doesn't really inspire a whole lot of confidence now, does it? At least not in your safety. This road in New Jersey is said to be one of the most haunted places in the entire state. Even before motorized vehicles were a thing, this place had a dark reputation. There were some very violent incidents that took place along here. In the 1920s and 30s, there were some pretty famous incidents. The creepiest, though, is probably the woman who lobbed off her husband's head and then buried both parts of his body on either side of the road. Just off the road is a pretty famous lake too, Ghost Lake, which gets its name for a pretty obvious reason. Spooky stuff happens there. Oh, and there's ghosts. Apparently there's often said to be an eerie fog surrounding the lake, and the sky is perpetually bright, even in the middle of the night, almost like it's always twilight.
What better name is there for a haunted road than Mount Misery? But wait, there's more, because Mount Misery is actually part of a set of two haunted highways, Mount Misery Road and Sweet Hollow Road, that neighbor one another and share in an incredibly ominous and haunted past. According to legend, a woman named Mary killed her husband and their daughters while driving down Mount Misery one night, and then, unable to live with what she had done, she took her own life while driving down Sweet Hollow Road. Many people who have driven down the roads at night have claimed to have seen a police officer flagging them down, as he would have done to Mary after she killed her family. Now, when these people get closer to the officer, they realize that the man is actually missing the back of his head. It's a gruesome sight, and at that point they drive away. Also, others claim that at one time the road was connected to the entrance of an insane asylum, which was burned to the ground one night by an angry patient, and that if you listen closely while driving down the road in the dead of night, you can still hear the dying patient's fiery screams. That sounds like hell.
And finally, we have Highway 299 in California. This one passes by a ghost town, so that, along with other ghostly tales, and it's no surprise why it's said to be one of the most haunted roads in the country. Highway 299 is a long, lonely road running from east to west through the state of California, known for its eerie ghost stories. The most haunted part is said to be between Old Shasta City and Whiskeytown Lake. Old Shasta City was, at one time, a lively gold rush town, but it's now abandoned. All that remains of it now are the ruins of the old bakery, the blacksmith shop, Mason's Lodge, and courthouse. Inside the courthouse, there is an old jail where it's said the spirits of criminals who were tried and hanged still lurk around. And further up the road is Whiskeytown. And Whiskeytown is super interesting because there's an entire town submerged under a lake. When the Whiskeytown Dam was built decades ago, the town flooded and its residents had to leave. But some believe that not everyone left, and the spirits of the people who once lived in the town now haunt the lake. And even if they're not haunting it, just swimming where there's an entire old abandoned town below you, that's weird. Hope you've enjoyed driving down this haunted road with us today.
Stay safe.